This is a sketchbook where a lot of ideas start, rough and unfinished. And for a creator, making videos can feel like opening up a blank page. One turns into a beautiful masterpiece, the other one's a terrible mess nobody understands but you. Which brings up a bigger question. How do you stop making videos for a faceless algorithm and start building a community by treating your videos like a love letter? That is why I had to chat with Tim.
The one thing I'm really enjoying about this whole experience is that the people I'm meeting through the comment section are actually people who are teaching me about something I'm very interested in already.
He's an architect building hospitals during the day, and by night he designs single-family homes on YouTube for just one person. We met about 5 years ago in a YouTube course that started this whole journey for us, which feels important to mention here, because both of us built channels around our passion until one thing finally clicked. So let's look at the reality behind the content to find out how he actually makes it work. How do you manage making videos with your regular work?
That's a question that I think came up from the communities that we're part of too. So I put out one video every week and I haven't missed a week yet. I actually always like to have a backlog of pre-scheduled videos. And for every project that I'm designing, I have to be able to not only come up with the idea from nothing, I have to then design it, 3D model it, set it up for rendering like you would see an animation studio do for anything like a Pixar movie or a Disney movie. And eventually, I need to take that and write a script for it. And then take that script and record it and then cut and edit everything. I do everything on my own too. I don't have a team behind me. I don't have anyone helping. So the way that I've been doing it is I always stay 4 videos scheduled ahead of time. And to do that, I have to just maintain one a week. I tell myself I need to design one project every single week. But as you get better, and this is the whole idea of YouTubing and the idea of why I started too, it was to hone my skill set as an architect, right? It has to be something that you're teaching yourself and that is always a learning process. And so with every project I'm designing, the goal is to get better, but to get faster and more efficient too. So in the beginning, it used to take one full week to come up with a sketch, a 3D model, the full render, and then come up with the script, record and cut and edit and schedule it. It took one full week to do that. Now, today, this is fast forwarding a year and a half from then, I can do 3 videos in 1 week.
Wow.
Right? That's like my maximum output is 3 per week. Some weeks I could get 4 depending on the video.
Okay.
But 3 is the maximum. That's like, if I keep that up for more than a month, I might fully burn out. So I have to do just 3 per week, if anything. The only time I ever push myself to do that is if I feel like I'm falling behind because I went on vacations.
Yeah.
Right? And if I go on vacations, the ideas don't ever stop. Or if I'm traveling so much for work and designing these hospitals, I have to look at construction, so I have to be out there. But while I'm on a plane or a train, or if I'm in a taxi, or even if I'm in a hotel or eating dinner somewhere, if I have an idea that comes to mind, I always have a sketchbook and my pen. And as soon as I have it, I sketch out whatever the idea is as quick as I could, and I write notes down for it. And as soon as I get back to my desk at home, I sit down and I dedicate the time to just designing it. And a friend of mine was talking to me about this because he knows me as a person, like outside of YouTube, outside of everything. But he's a coworker who sits right next to me. And one day he was like, have you ever heard of the Pomodoro method, where people take this clock and they set a timer and they say, for this amount of time, I have to focus. I have to sit down and do this thing. And I said, yeah, I heard of that. And he said, well, you need the opposite of that. Like, you're someone who's always on and always focusing. You need the reverse Pomodoro. And that actually is really true. So to your question about how do I actually commit and do this, one of the problems I have is that in my family, we've been working since we were children. Like, we were taught and raised to work our entire lives. So one of the things that I always do is I'm always thinking about how to do something better or how to be more efficient at something. And I'm constantly thinking about how to be more productive, even though people see me and think I'm fully productive. So like today, as we're recording this podcast, this isn't a good example. This is actually something I'm trying to break. But today I'm actually off of work because today's my birthday, and here we are recording a
No
podcast.
way! Happy birthday!
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, thank you for taking the time to chat with me on your birthday. That I really appreciate that. I personally have a similar problem where every minute of every day is kind of filled with something productive, but I try to, make exceptions for special days. So, yeah. But that is very interesting to hear. So, is it basically like instead of playing video games or watching TV, you just design your buildings and that is where the project starts?
Yeah, I think a lot of my free time is actually spent doing that. So, whenever I do have any free time in the evenings or on the weekends, I already know that I'm going to be designing something.
Mm-hmm.
But if my wife and I set up a date or we set up a time to go and do something together, I always make the time to go. I think that the biggest thing for me is having the sketches already prepared in my sketchbook from traveling and from going to other places. When I sit down, I know I can open to any page in there and I know which one I can pick up from and start from immediately. And as I start designing it, it comes together pretty fluently because now 3D modeling has moved from becoming something that I'm using to feeling like it's an extension of my own hands. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's like when you get so good at a craft that you've done for so long, you can pick up and do it very quickly. It's like watching the barista at your local cafe making art in your latte, right? It's like
Yeah.
they don't need to think about it anymore. It just comes out. So for me, when I sit down and I have that sketchbook in front of me, I know how long it's going to take to design something. I know all the hotkeys to get me there, but I also have all of these preset files that I can just pull from and use and build off of. And I think that's something that a lot of creative people should be doing, whether it's with Premiere Pro or any of these other programs you're using. There are files and templates you could create for yourself that helps you speed along your process so that the parts that you hate are easier and faster to do. And the things that you love are the things that you spend the time doing. So for me, I spend most of my time sketching and 3D modeling. The rest
Mhm.
of it comes together after the fact. I actually don't script my videos until it's done. So
Okay.
until I render everything, I don't script it because I need the renderings to tell me what I could show as the B-roll for the faceless channel.
And so with this channel, is the purpose for you just to have a creative outlet, something productive you can do in your off time, or is there another sort of business goal or anything with that? Because like you mentioned, you had the leatherworking experience that you burned out of. You had the kind of uh, laser cutting channel where you sold templates. Um, did you set up something to sell with this channel, or is this purely creative expression for you?
So the channel itself is purely creative expression. I didn't really want to look at metrics or numbers for it. I know that always comes up at some point, right?
Hmm.
Everyone thinks about metrics for their channel, how many subscribers they get. It often leads to sadness, and people are like, should I continue or not? I go through that every now and again, but I
We all
told
do.
myself from the start I was going to use this channel as just that creative outlet because during my days it gets so stressful working on construction and working through all these projects, these large scale hospitals, that I needed some way of returning to why I got into architecture. As you grow in any career, you start to let go of the things you got into it for, right? Like
Hmm.
as an architect, you get in, and at first, you're constantly the designer. You're holding the tools, you're wielding that power to design under the supervision of someone else. And as you grow, you shed those tools and you become the person giving those ideas to someone else to create. And as you grow even more, you do that on a higher level, but you do it for bigger projects and with a bigger team. And so you eventually get to a point where you're managing more than you're doing. And I wanted to return to the act of making. So for this channel, everything is about creative expression. But in terms of a product and monetizing, there is always that aspect in the back of my mind of how could I create something that makes some money off of this channel, but is done in a way that aligns with everything I believe in? I don't want to sell or take on a sponsorship that doesn't align with my vision or the tools that I'm using or anything that I believe in. So here's a good example. I get a lot of people reaching out to me. It's companies who are focusing on AI tools.
Sure.
They want me to use AI or their platform to create a walkthrough video instead of rendering it the old fashioned way that I've been doing it. My wife and I have looked into AI for a very long time. She's an engineer. She worked on the rocket that went to the Artemis mission that just went to the moon and back. So she worked on the boosters for that. Um, and so she and I have always talked about AI and all these future tools that are coming out. And whenever I think about it and I see all the tools coming out right now, there's an idea behind it that my wife and I just haven't gotten behind. And so I've turned down every offer related to AI because the only way that I would ever use AI is if it's something that's as a part of my process, not as an end product. And the sponsors who come out to me want me to use it to create videos as the end product off of my designs. In that sense, it doesn't give me creative control of every aspect of that final video that it puts out. I like to control all of it. I don't like having AI generate people or materials or any of that for me. I would rather come up with that because then I understand if I were to build this, it could be built. And so instead of going down the sponsorship route right now, where people reaching out are mainly AI based, I actually put together a portfolio book. So for the first year that my channel was going, I designed 74 different projects. So it's from September 2024 until the end of 2025. And one of the things architects do is we often put together what's called a monograph. A monograph is a book of your work. You select your work, you put it in there, you have images, descriptions, more information than someone would find online. You package all that work and then you sell it. And so I decided, why not just create my own book, sell it through Amazon? And so I designed the whole book from end to end. I printed a few proof copies to look at, and I worked on it for a month, put everything together, and then I published it, shared it with my audience. And what was fascinating to me was a lot of people in my audience have constantly been asking me, how could they support me? How could they support my channel? And everyone kept saying, you should start a buy me a coffee account or something. I don't even know what that is, but I guess it's a place where they can contribute money to buy you a coffee.
Yeah.
So instead, I shared this book, and then a lot of people ended up buying it. So the book is doing very well now. And that's just one way for my audience to support my work because I'm doing all of this for free. It's not like anyone's paying me to design something or a sponsor is giving me money to talk about a product. All of this is just mine from beginning to end.
You said at some point one video just took off and like brought in a bunch of new people. And then, people started asking, how can they support you? There was more interest in like, can you design a building for us? Can you make a sponsored video about some AI tool? But do you have any idea what was different about that video or why it suddenly started growing? Do you care about that at all? Or do you just accept that it happened?
In that moment, I know exactly why it happened actually. So I think you'd be really interested in this. So the reason why the video went viral, it's actually a video. It was I called it the hidden greenhouse home. And what it was is on a ground floor, it's a greenhouse that you would see from the street. You'd look at it and you'd think to yourself, this thing is just a commercial greenhouse. But underneath that is actually a home buried underneath the greenhouse. And the idea behind it is that the greenhouse being on the floor above, you can grow all of your own food. You can then bring that food downstairs, and that could be your way of living. That the place that is providing all this food for you is actually the place that you live. And then when you go downstairs, because of the thickness of the floor slab that supports the greenhouse above it, that actually insulates the home so much that it reduces your heating and cooling costs. It's like when you go down to a basement in a house, right? It's always cooler in the summer,
Yeah.
or it maintains its temperature in the winter. And so that video ended up going viral because there's a really big YouTuber named Kirsten Dirksen
Hmm.
who does these house tours of houses around the world.
Hmm.
She did a house tour for a greenhouse home. And now, greenhouse homes are a very rare thing to find. You're actually in a perfect spot to find them, Val, because you live in Europe.
Yeah.
A lot of them are actually in Europe. A lot of them are actually in Norway
Okay.
and Sweden. And so she visited some out there. She posted a video in around the July timeframe last year in 2025.
Hmm.
And as soon as that one started going viral for her, it started to pull up my video for all of her audience. And so her audience went from that video to my video without her linking it. It was just a suggested video in the sidebar or like on her channel.
Yeah.
And so as people found her video, they then found my channel. When they found my channel is evergreen content with a lot of greenhouse homes. So now they started going from one video to the next video to the next video. And during that time frame, I had about 8 videos pre-scheduled for greenhouse homes already.
Oh,
So I was that far ahead in like how many videos I was going to put out. And during that time, each one would go out every week. And as each one went out, that exponential curve that went up for viewers, subscribers joining my channel, that increased and it continued every week. So that graph just constantly went up and never came down. And from then until maybe January of this year, it never actually slowed down. Now, everything has slowed down because the trend is moving away from greenhouse homes. But
mhm.
to your point about, does it matter to me? It doesn't really, because all of the content is evergreen. I'm not talking about a political time right now. I'm not talking about something that relates to our world in this exact moment. I'm talking about designs that are future concepts for things that some subsect of people might actually be interested in for building for themselves. And so at some point, more people will find the channel again. But for now, I'm just going to keep doing what I was doing in the beginning.
So you just had the perfect content around the perfect time, and it was just like an outside video that kind of gave it all a boost, so to speak.
Yeah, that's right. And then as people found that the architecture that they liked the most, right? Greenhouse homes.
Yeah.
I guess that's like the idea. They ended up following the channel, but they became the true fans too, right? The people
Mhm.
that show up for every video, not just one. So when you have that group of people, you know that with every video you put out, you're going to always get a select few who's going to watch it and support you. But at the same time, these are people so interested in the idea that it created this really beautiful dialogue in the comment section. And that dialogue, where I get to learn from some people who have been researching this for years, or learning from experts who might be a biologist who want to live in a place like this, right? Like you get this back and forth you would never get in the real world unless you met this group of people. And so that's why, to me, more than the metrics, the one thing I'm really enjoying about this whole experience is that the people I'm meeting through the comment section are actually people who are teaching me about something I'm very interested in already. So it's all about learning and doing more and learning more, and then putting out the next video that builds on every idea. And as you create that little community of people, they start to become that true fan who want to support everything you do. But now you kind of get to know them a little bit too. There's a person who commented on my videos back before I was even growing. And she has a channel too. It's called Live in a Greenhouse.
Mhm.
She actually has her own little greenhouse home. It's a tiny home and it's in America. It's
Mhm.
one of the first and smallest ones. And I think it's somewhere north of Seattle in Washington. And she was my biggest commenter for the longest time. And I didn't know who she was, but I started looking at her channel and I was like, this is amazing. Like, it's a woman who's sharing her journey living in a greenhouse home, sharing everything from the temperature swings throughout the entire year to how she built it. And she has this core group of people who love what she did and want to do it themselves. And so you meet people like her. And that to me is the beautiful thing about having this creative outlet. I get to meet people like you I get to meet people like her. And that is the reason why I keep doing it. It's not about the crazy spikes in numbers or any of that. It's about the people I've met and honing that skill.
Yeah, I fully agree on that. It's all about making connections. Who did you start making videos for, and who did the audience ended up being?
So I actually started the channel designing homes for my wife and I, but
Mhm.
mainly for her. Each video that I worked on is this idea that I want to sell to her somehow, right, for our future
Oh,
dream house. And whenever I try and do that, I make sure that each of the videos has some part of her in it, right? Like, is it a space that she's always wanted? Is it a garden? Is it a pool? Is it a game room? Right? She loves playing Dungeons and Dragons. Does she have her own little office to do that online with her friends?
awesome.
And over time, that started to grow and it became the reason for pushing ahead with the channel. So before I had an audience, she was mainly the person I was thinking of. The
Mhm.
second person was myself. What does a house for her and I look like? And as you start pulling all of these different design ideas into place, you start to find unique expressions for houses and architecture. And then that led to the growth in my audience.
So fascinating. There's this technique in writing where you start whatever you're writing, you start with dear such and such, thinking of one particular person. And I think what you're doing is essentially this in video form. And
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's basically a love letter. It's this idea of how do I express myself using my skill set and how do I then share it with her?
that brings me to another point I'm really curious about right now, because you say you bring in an element of her, something that you talked about, um, and you've made over 70 projects. Probably, I don't know, you're closer to 100 now, but like,
Hmm.
how do you think about developing style, or because like as an architect, I'm sure you think about like what is your signature or something like that, right?
Hmm.
Do you feel like you have arrived at what you would call your style? Do you think, is it something you actively do? Or is it just something that develops over time?
Mm. So I had this idea early on. I don't know how you figured it out through your question, but one of the things that I think architects and artists and designers try and do is to find what in their own field is a representation of themselves, right? Like what is it
Mhm.
that you as a creative person really love about the world or think about the world or think should appear in our world today that doesn't exist yet? And how do you then find that thing so that it becomes your focus in life? And for me, when I was looking for my style, the only way I knew I could find it is by doing the thing, right? Like constantly honing the skill that I'm developing through the channel. But through that, every single project that I'm designing was originally very different from one another. When you look back at the early videos, there was a pool house, a floating pool house in a tropical area, a courtyard house. It was a lot of different ideas. But then I knew in that moment it was a connection with nature, that there was this idea that I kept going towards without even realizing it that related to natural environments and reconnecting ourselves with nature, right? And from there, it became, well, how do I create an environment that allows us to enjoy nature all year? And that's where the greenhouse home idea came up. And then the other part of it is, I think it's important, just like for YouTubers and other creative people, to always keep your eyes and ears open whenever you're traveling and whenever you're doing anything online or watching anything. And by that, what I mean is when I travel for personal reasons or for work, I always go and I visit new architecture that I heard of or that I know about or that I've always wanted to see. I also go to the oldest ones within the cities that I visit. And when I do that, each of those places that I go to, I try and take it in and understand why the architect did it. What are the reasons why they created a space to feel the way it did? What did they do with the materials? What details did they have in it? And from that, I come back and then I start designing based on what I learned so that you're taking what you saw you're replicating some aspects of it, but you're designing a new thing based off of it, right? You're evolving an idea that someone else had, and eventually it becomes your own. And I think in our world of YouTube, right, with all the creators out there, there are so many people who will look at other YouTubers and look at what they're doing and replicate it end to end, but never actually ask themselves, what is it that I actually believe in? What's my take on it? What do I not agree with? And how do I let go of all those parts of everything that I don't like and just focus on the things that make me who I am? And how do I then represent that and share it in a video? So for me, the style comes up through travel and the constant development of every single project. And as each project grows, the ideas evolve. And so now the ideas get clearer with every video, but also the size of the project is growing. So it moved from just single family houses to now focusing on multifamily. And now eventually, I'm hoping it goes into high rise and skyscraper.
Tim just said something interesting here that I think is easy to miss. At some point, you have to ask yourself, what do you actually believe in? Because that question, very few people ask themselves, but it can really sharpen your perspective. And it's also one of 17 questions I collected over the years to become a better creator. I put this all together in a small free ebook called 17 Questions for Creators. It's basically a collection of questions I return to whenever I feel lost, pulled into too many different directions, or I'm tempted to build somebody else's version of success. So, if this part of the conversation resonates with you, you can download 17 Questions for Creators for free. The link for that is down in the description. And now back to the show. Is that then still a pitch, so to speak, for your dream house with your wife, or is this moving more into the creative expression?
It's going back into the creative expression, but it's also growing the ideas and the styles that I've come up with. So, to your last question, the ideas that I've come up with are all around nature, reconnection with nature, and also passive design, right? How do you design a building that uses less energy? And how do you design a building that's actually sustainable? And so taking everything I learned from the small scale residential, but growing it. And now it's actually growing into, I'm taking it step by step. So what it's actually doing is I went from single family greenhouse homes, which became the core concept right now, and I turned that into a community greenhouse home. It's this idea of now not only do you reconnect with nature and grow and harvest your own fresh food right outside of your house, you can now live within a community, right? How do you build a community so that it solves this idea of loneliness, which is the epidemic that a lot of elderly people pass away from, right? Like as we grow older, we lose our friends, you lose your family. And as that happens, what we used to have in our world was a place where people can actually connect with their neighbors and you got to know each other. But with technology being how it is and the places that we've designed being how they are, not a lot of people actually take the time to meet their neighbors and have full discussions anymore. So the idea kept growing, and that's the exciting thing about my YouTube channel, that it's this sandbox that I get to play with, which is why I don't have a client and I don't have a location or a budget. But the fascinating part about that is I do have a lot of prospective clients reach out to me. Sometimes they share the potential budget that they have in mind. And one of them that really surprised me was a family from Silicon Valley who wanted a guest house to be designed for their family so that when their family visited, they could go and stay at the guest house. And they were very modest. They had a really beautifully written email. They said, they understand I'm not taking on clients. And they said, but if I was interested, it's not a very big budget, but it's between $4 and $5 million. And to me, I was like, that's a very big budget for a house. But to them, it wasn't. And it helped me realize that I also needed to step down in scale, right? I couldn't just design houses for the very wealthy. I don't want to just design houses that only the middle income people could afford. How do you now design houses for low income families? And so the channel keeps growing and shrinking in that scale for architecture, right? It's how do you design for everybody? Then how do you design these bigger and bolder ideas based on everything you're learning? So while it's stepping away from designing the dream house for my wife and I, that's always going to be part of the channel because I'm always going to have another single family house as part of the content. But the ideas of what life should be or what architecture can be, that's always going to be at the core of the channel too.
Hearing you speak makes me think eventually you might be asked to design a video game landscape or a movie city in the not too distant future. Um, is that something you'd be interested in, or are you just like any client work is a strict no at the moment?
Right now, any client work is a strict no. I've turned down so many up to now. I think at some point it would be amazing to take on clients, but
Mm-hmm.
for now, I just don't have the time or the bandwidth to do it, and that's something we haven't really talked too much about.
Yeah.
Knowing when to say no,
Mm-hmm.
not just to someone else, but to yourself. One of the things my wife would tell you is that early on in our relationship, I had so many ideas I wanted to pursue. This YouTube channel, product design, architecture, everything. And I kept chasing each one of them, and each one led nowhere. And it wasn't that the idea wasn't good, it's that I was spreading myself too thin and not devoting enough time to get deep into that thing. Right. And so with this channel, I'm only designing architecture for this channel. I'm only doing full on rendered walkthroughs until I free up enough time to try something new. And so when you look at my channel right now, all of the content looks the same, which is what a lot of channels that succeeded on YouTube look like. It's people who didn't just keep changing their ideas or their topics trying to follow the next big thing, but instead it's a person who found something they were so passionate about that they're constantly sharing that same idea through the same style and lens. As a person who has this perspective on life or this idea that they're honing and they're trying to get better at it. And as they're doing that, they're sharing their journey along the way. And so my channel is my journey through architecture. And as I keep developing more of these ideas, it keeps on evolving and evolving. And at some point, I'm going to have too many opportunities, but I have to know how to filter them and pick the ones that are right for me. And I think that's the interesting part of having a full-time job while doing this, because my YouTube channel is monetized. And I remember when I first got monetized, you and I had a call where a bunch of our friends jumped on and we were all chatting about it. And I remember telling you how much it was earning in the first month of just ad revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, wow, that's enough for some YouTubers to just go full time doing this, and
Yeah.
that surprised me. I didn't know what that meant, but the channel is earning money. But I also enjoy my full time job just as much as I enjoy doing this YouTube stuff too. So for me, it's very important because 40 hours of my week is devoted to travel and doing my full time work building these hospitals, which is important for everyone here in New York State. The other half of that is my time developing the YouTube projects. But now I also have my wife who I want to spend my time with too. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you juggle all of these things
Yeah.
but still make time for anything else? And it was learning to say no, not only to sponsor opportunities, but to other people and clients, potential clients for the YouTube channel. If I take on any clients, I already know immediately I have to sacrifice something else.
What you said at the beginning of this of having too many interests, too many ideas, and not going deep on one of them is a struggle I share. And I think I've just arrived at a point where I am really going deep on one subject, but the temptation is always there to like, ooh, but this sounds fun. This looks interesting.
Yeah, at one point, my wife said, if someone came to you with some absurd amount of money to design something for them, would you take it?
Mm-hmm.
And I said no. It depends on the project and the person. It also depends on the time and the brief, right?
Yeah.
Is it something they want immediately? Is it someone who's going to not give me space and time? Is it someone that's going to work with me and my ideas, or do they just have an idea that they want me to put out into the world? And so for me right now, I think it's important to learn how to dive deep into something because then when you step away from it, you don't have that feeling of regret. I had so many things I tried in the past, like leatherworking, that when I decided not to do it anymore, it became such a big regret. It was like I devoted all this time into something and I got so good at it, but I knew I could get even better. And I was still excited about it. But I had to stop because it was killing me. It was like working full time, coming back home, creating these products by hand,
Mhm.
physically hand stitching every single hole and selling it, right? It's like, is it worth the time and the money? And it wasn't, because for me, it wasn't the money for the reasons why I did it.
Yeah.
It was actually the fun I was having and the meditative practice of creating the product. And so, as you learn about yourself, you learn how to get even deeper into the next thing that you really want to do. And as you dive deeper, if you eventually decide you don't want to do it, it does not feel like a regret. It feels like you're ending a chapter and starting a new one.
Mm. And so if you think about somebody who is making videos on YouTube, who kind of understands all the basics, but maybe hasn't found their lane yet, or for didn't have an outside video lift up their channel, they're just like somewhere in this messy middle, what would you tell them? What's your advice to them?
That's a really good question. If I were telling myself
Yeah.
when I started this new channel, right, and I was giving myself advice,
Hmm.
I would tell myself to just keep loving the craft of what you're doing, whether it's creating productivity videos, architecture like me, some brand design videos, or even if you're just having fun making models, right? Like there are people who love making little Gundam figures and painting them. And I think that there are these subsects of life that so many people are interested in, but not many people are putting out. And it's a matter of time for you to be discovered. It's just a matter of when, it's not if. And if you keep honing that craft and you like your own videos and you get excited for your own videos, you're on the right path. If you look at your own videos and you don't get excited about them, or you don't feel like you got better with each one, then maybe it's time to consider whether or not that area that you're talking about or doing is right for you. And at that point, the other part of it for me would have been, what is it in life that you're actually good at? Not what you think you want to do and what you want to pursue or be known for, but what are you actually good at? Because I stayed away from sharing any content on architecture for a long time because I didn't
Hmm.
want to burn out. But sadly, that's actually what I'm good at. That's like my skill. I could wake up and do it, right? And it's something that I stayed away from because of fear, that I was afraid that I would actually burn out from doing too much architecture. The other fear that I didn't share with you, Val, is that people in my firm would find the channel and they might say, oh, wow, look, he's designing hospitals during the day and he thinks he could do residential at night.
Hmm.
But actually, when people do find my channel, they get so into it and then they want to talk to me about it even more. And then they give me more opportunities and then they want me to do this for the firm. And it's like, okay, now there's another skill that grew out of this. So if you have a skill, lean into that skill no matter what it is and really push that skill ahead, because the reason why you're so good at the thing that you're skillful at is that you've practiced it for so long and someone's going to see it at the other end. And when they see that, it sets you apart, because when people get really good at a craft, they immediately have something about them in that skill set that's different than the next person next to them.
A lot of good advice in there. Um, with where you are now, with the channel and with your professional career, what does success look like to you?
So I used to define success by financials, right?
Sure.
How much money you make
Hmm.
and all of that, the things that you were taught growing up. And I realized at one point there's this idea in, at least in America. I'm not sure if it's the same in Europe, but it's an idea called FIRE, right?
Hmm.
Financial independence, retire early.
Yeah.
It's a whole movement. There's a big group of people doing it. It's this idea you save up enough money that you could retire at a younger age for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
My wife and I got there, right?
Hmm.
And we still work because we love what we do. And so when I think about my future and what it looks like, I'd love the YouTube channel to continue growing and reaching more people so that I can have bigger discussions about architecture on a larger scale and so that I can continue learning through the eyes of the end user. Someone like you who would live in a house. You're not an architect, but you have ideas of what a space should be for you.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that dialogue is the most beautiful thing you can get in architecture when you can talk to the person using that place or potentially using it in the end. And as that channel grows, my hope is that that can become my full time focus when I decide to retire. I think when it comes to working and designing hospitals, that's always going to be part of what I do. But the other part of it is also trying to share some more unique ideas for the future of our world with a bigger group of people so that we could potentially start building these things and living differently than how we do now.
As always, there's an extended version of this conversation over on the Patreon, where we get into Tim's leatherworking business that got him burnt out. And it explains a lot about why he's so careful now with sponsors, clients, and saying yes too quickly. But Patreon is not just where you get extended episodes. It's also where I host a monthly group call for creative professionals building media-led businesses. Because making hard decisions is easier when you have friends to talk to. So if you want to support the show and join the conversation, become a member of the Creator Trust Club over on Patreon. I hope to see you there.